Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and this is a podcast called Chatting in Cars. I talk about random topics while I drive to places, generally. There's a disclaimer at the start of this podcast because I do talk about sensitive topics and I don't tend to stick to one topic, so obviously it's going to change over the course of the podcast. So if you want to change your mind and listen to something else, that's absolutely up to you as an autonomous adult. You have every right to, and I can bet you can too. I swear a lot. I've had some bad experiences with people telling me not to and making me not swear, so fuck it. I embrace my individuality now and my freedom and swear my fucking head off. So if you don't want to hear that either, I wouldn't listen to this because I swear a lot. The topic for today is belonging. Belonging as in belonging to a group, belonging to a movement, if you want to go that far. You can talk about it in different ways. Lots of different ways you can talk about belonging. People are deemed to be social creatures. They tend to want to join in, joiners we call them. There is a difference, of course, between belonging and just following blindly. You've got to understand that. It's not a case of I can't think for myself, therefore I have to do what everyone tells me to do. Some people do that. It is annoying because I'm, an advocate of critical thinking. Critical thinking, unfortunately, does mean that you have to question your surroundings and why you're doing what you're doing. Some people aren't feeling brave enough to do that, and so they end up just following the herd. Some people will label them as sheeples, which I find weird, because in a sense everyone's a bit of a sheeple, so there's no point labeling anyone anything, really. Even those people who claim to have individual thoughts, who are the ones calling each other others sheeple, they have some kind of conformism to the surrounds around them, so I don't know what the fuck they're going on about besides being a hypocrite. Sorry, already my stutter's kicking in. See? I can't win. My stutter sucks. But we laugh about it because it's just part of the format. Anyway, so what to talk about when you come to belonging. Now, we've got a thing in Australia called Act, Commit, Belong. It's meant to be inclusive towards people who like to sit on the outskirts but want to recognize some kind of mental health benefits from socializing from others. Now, I am not one of these people. I am quite happy with my isolation. I love my hermit mode and I don't want to belong, quite frankly. I'm quite happy to coexist with the people, to want to join in and be considered part of a group, part of a society, where they've got all these, for example, clubs and shit like that. I'm not a joiner. I don't like that shit. I don't even like team sports, to be honest. My favorite types of sports are the one where they beat the shit out of each other. I'm like, yeah. So UFC and stuff like that. Fuck sport, man. Just beat the shit out of each other. I want to see which one's the strongest. It's more like I do have skills where I can work together with other people. I prefer not to. That could come from, trauma background. It could come from ASD, not understanding what the fuck's going on half the time, so you'd rather just work on your own. It could come from generally being a Sigma. I have no need to want to belong. I'm happy to do my own thing on my own, in my own time, on my own, on 2 feet. I would say some people might call that a lonely existence. I don't think so. I've got a natural inclination to be alone anyway. I'm so used to it in my own head, as a result of the kind of childhood I have, the natural, structural abnormalities I have in my brain. Even if I wanted to belong, I still find a complicated situation where I have trouble. And to be honest, I get fed up and I just isolate. I'm going, I don't understand what the fuck's going on. This is getting a little bit too frustrating. Rather than become another problem within the system, I'm just going to, bounce. Fuck this. It's easier for me not to associate with people because it's just frustrating and draining and I just don't want to. So I'm quite happy in hermit mode at the moment. I'm sitting there doing my paintings and I'm, working on my businesses and I'm just having a jolly good old time. I'm sitting there listening to documentaries in the background and reading my books and it's nice. I keep to myself. I don't have to associate or people please for anyone. I don't have to have any kind of obligation to treat people nicely, even if I don't like them, stuff like that. I mean, normally I do treat people nicely because of, basic human respect, but at the same time, there's no forced interaction. So I don't really want to belong. That's just me, my predisposition. That's not just one particular thing. That's a cluster of things that have occurred and already pre-existed, which have acted towards creating that kind of mindset. Some people thrive on social interaction. They want to belong. They feel it's some kind of constructive thing. A lot of people think it's more like a herd mentality or hive mindset, which can actually lend itself to, liability. If the hive says we're doing this, it can be a fucking problem if it doesn't, promote constructive reality. So I'm looking at particular social movements, political movements that have just meant the destruction of other social and political movements, and I'm just thinking, I don't know how this is good. I mean, if you think about it, like communism, for example, I mean, it's meant to be egalitarian and collectivism. It's meant to be everybody's equal. I mean, nobody's doing it these days properly, by theory. You got Marxist theory, you got Engels, all that kind of shit. No one's actually doing it. They're just doing fascism in the guise of communism. They claim to be communist, but they're being fascist. Because there's always some arsehole that stands up and says, we're doing it this way. Or there's a board of arseholes that stand up and say, we're doing it this way. And fuck anyone who opposes us. There's no equality in that. So I think they're doing it wrong. But anyway, it's all fascism. If it's not, like one person standing up and dictating what everyone else is doing, it's a board of people that stands up and says, this is what we're doing. And some people call it democracy as well. We're all doing the same thing. It's the same structure. They just keep applying different labels to it and claiming that it's something else. It's like, no. What it needs is its own structure. It's not entirely fascism, though, because you're still, the leader who keeps claiming all this shit is still accountable to others. So there is some accountability. Ultimate fascism is more like feudalism, really, where there's a king and what he says goes, otherwise you get wiped out. That's why we had the Magna Carta, so, he couldn't just stand up and say, I want it this way, and fuck anyone who says no. I've got the money and the power, and therefore I'm it. But then again, of course, like, kings of that era were meant to be under the guidance of the divine, which I find, first of all, is bullshit, because the divine would never encourage the wiping out of their own creation. It's like you working on a project for God knows how long, and then suddenly someone says, you said that I could do this, so I'm going to wipe out an entire bunch of it. It's like, no, that's my project. I've been growing that for fucking forever. You ever grown like mold in a petri dish? You imagine some bastard just pours bleach on it and says, it's an act of God. And you're like, no, you bastard, I was growing that. I need it for the science fair. It's a weird metaphor, but at the same time, I just don't think that they would willingly wipe out creation. Not when you can sort of... Most of evil is the product of misinformation. That's what I'm saying. I mean, even the devil's like a litmus paper for stupidity. If you're willing to believe the misinformation, not actually go out and find out yourself. That's the problem with belonging, is like you tend to believe in bandwagonism. Sorry, I was just getting rid of my visor then. That was a big bang. That's the danger of belonging. To say that you want to associate with a particular group for these particular values, but you don't know what other values are included under that umbrella of that label of that group. You look at the BLM movement, for example. At the time, we were all for like, yeah, this is like an extension of Martin Luther Kingerism, and yeah, fuck yeah, let's do this. But then there was that lady that did research on what they were doing with the funding. I've forgotten her name. It's something like Candace or something. She seems really smart. I like her. But she went and looked into what they did with the money with this. It was supposed to be funding for helping people in low SES communities, for example. I don't know if it was particularly ethnicity based or anything like that, but it was meant to promote equality and helping those who are underfunded, in poverty. And I was sitting there going, yeah, this is fucking great. This is great. We're using this particular flag of ethnicity, but okay. I don't agree with that. It feels like reverse racism to me, but okay. I'm hoping you're going to do something with this. But then you looked at what they spent it on. It was things like strippers and hookers and drugs and property and the fucking Maldives and stuff like that. I'm sort of going, what the fuck? How is this helping the people that's the danger of wanting to belong to a group. Is like you don't know behind the scenes or behind the curtain what they're actually doing. They might be promoting the front of this is what we're doing, but ultimately it's like you can't monitor everything. You can't just assume that you know everything about that. I mean, even things like the church or the Dalai Lama recently, he scared me with what he did to that little boy. I'm sitting there going, that is pedophilia, dude. I don't know if anyone's seen that snippet on YouTube. It is on YouTube. But he was sitting there with a little boy. The little boy was only about 3 years old, and he's sitting there playing around with him, sitting going, oh, isn't that cute? That's lovely. Oh, he loves kids. All right, yeah. And then he said, I want you to suck my tongue. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck? No. No. And the kid's like, hey, it's the Dalai Lama. And I'm like, no. And my teacher radar and my radar as a woman who's a protective mother figure went, what the fuck? No. Don't you touch it. Get off that dirty old man's lap. You know, it's like, what the fuck, dude? No. And my radars went, fucking red flag. I was meant to be a peaceable person. What are you doing to this child? And then, of course, that set off a whole sort of, you know, network of whatever the fuck else are they doing in the background that we don't know about, you know? You know, that's the danger of wanting, because the Dalai Lama is like one of the most fucking peaceful, portrayed as the most peaceful, loving characters in this, you know, stage of reality and humanity, right? He's meant to be all Mother Teresa-y and stuff, but we don't even know what Mother Teresa was fucking up to in the background, you know? It's just he's got really good PR. And it's terrifying as well, because you don't know what you're signing up to. It just creates chaos. You look at it critically. You want to believe that these people that keep pushing this, you know, peaceable, benevolent approach to humanity are good people, but at the same time, you don't know what they're doing, what strings they're pulling, who they've got working for them. You can hazard a guess, but, you know, how can you say that this organization or this group actively or accurately represents my values? You want to believe that, but, you know, there's a sense of naivety there, or just ignorance, I guess, or arrogance to assume, you know. I talked about in my last podcast and my mom's Jehovah's Witness. Amazingly soft, peaceable people. I will say that. I've never had any problem with them. And to be honest, I look at people on the individual scale. I don't look at a collective, because I just think you can have one rotten apple in a whole bunch of fucking apples and just not see it. We got to look at the individual, stop looking at the collective and generalizing and stereotyping. That's the thing. It's like but her approach to belonging to that was assuming that she was on the winning side. It's like, we don't know for sure, as human beings existing in the 3D, what the 5D is actually doing up there, what the main plan is. We just don't know. And it would be arrogant to assume that we know everything when we've got such a limited scope on reality. We don't see everything. We have built-in object impermanence, whether we want to admit it or not. We say, oh, the toddlers have object impermanence. Like, you don't know for sure what's going on in a different country. You're seeing what's being presented in the mass media. We don't know for sure. Unless you're actually there physically experiencing it, you won't fucking know. And even then it'll be based on your interpretation of events, your own narrative you constructed, which is again informed by your, you know, from a social constructivist viewpoint, is from your own experiences, which will shape your interpretation. That's your lens. It's everyone's got a unique stance on this. So to say that one particular organization completely represents what I believe in is impossible. Everybody's different, everybody's got a different viewpoint, so I have a real problem with wanting to belong to anything at this point. I can see some organizations which share commonalities with my belief systems. I've seen copious amounts of religions that share similar traits to my belief systems as a divinist, but at the same time I don't pick one and say this is it for me. And some people would say this inability to be picking one set of religion would be a lack of faith. I'm sitting there going, no, because I'm looking at the values and the message that are being portrayed in the belief systems on the whole. I'm not looking at the dance steps and saying I know the polka, you know. It's like, I don't care about the dance steps. I care about what you're trying to tell people to do and the message that's being portrayed. It's the, you know, people who rely heavily on the words to the exact degree in the Bible, for example, because this is my reference. I was raised with the Bible. Had I been in a different culture, a different religion, different whatever, it would have been, you know, some other tool of message conveyance. I'm looking at, some people rely too heavily on the exact words of the Bible to, you know, tell the message. The message is an abstract. It's not exact letters. There was no golden chalice. There was no, you know, it's an abstract. It's the message. I mean, generally the message is don't be an arsehole. And that just transpans across all kinds of religions and belief systems. It's like, we all have to work together on this fucking planet. Don't be an arsehole. that's the general message. I mean, Jesus, you don't have to be holy to understand that. It's like, it's just not conducive to be an arsehole to each other. That's how you end up with wars and famines and poverty and all these kind of horrible things where everybody gets fucked over. If you're looking at it from a like utopian society kind of thing, actually in that book, Utopia, I can't remember who wrote it. He's pretty famous. Anyway, Thomas More. Was it Thomas More? No. Who am I thinking of? I don't know. But in that book, even women got fucked over. You sit there and read that book, it's like women are meant to be submissive to men. It's like, well, no, we're meant to be equal to men, but with our own unique, recognized strengths, obviously. It was a nice idea. I mean, but, you know, you can't even ascribe to that kind of belief system because that belief system, as it is described in that book, is flawed. That's the danger of belonging. It's like everybody says, well, I say everybody is generally saying that, isn't it? A utopian society is the ideal. It's like, but I've read the book Utopia, and what you told me is utopia is actually a reflection of what was running around and rumbling around in people's heads and psyche at the time in that particular context. It's not actually a utopian society. It's only relevant to that particular time and context where women, first of all, were oppressed and men were the dominant, you know, sex because they had to be, supposedly. Honestly, I think in reality, even in the 5D, it's more of an equal sharing of the weight, because there are some things that females can do that men can't do, and some things that men can't do that women can do. You know, it's absurd to assume that one is better than the other. Sorry, I've just had a ute overtake me. What a tit. They're not bright. Anyway, so this ute, this personification of stupidity. But that's the thing, it's the danger of belonging. Now, as a human being with a survivalist instinct, hopefully built in, right? Because all animals or all organisms have a sense of how to survive. We've dulled ours down with convenience and complacency, to be honest, because it's just easier to, apparently. If shit really kicks off, a lot of people are going to be fucked over by their inability to survive, just in basic understanding of surviving. Because we're too used to things being soft. I mean that in a soft sense, like WWE, S-A-W-F-T, soft. Because you can't teach that. But, you know, people they've lost the instinct to survive, to reason, to be critically examining things because it's too easy to just run into the bandwagoning that's presented. I mean, everybody's stressed out and tired, particularly with all the events that are fucking going on right now. They're more willing to believe that 30-centimeter vision that's presented to it, that reality that says this is how it is. They're more willing to because they're fucking tired, dude. If they overthink it, they're just going to exhaust themselves even further. It takes some extreme higher order thinking to criticize anything in your immediate presence, particularly when it's easier to just accept what you're fed. Everybody's just trying to get their mortgage paid. They're just trying to get food on the fucking table, dealing with the interactions on the micro with people they have to deal with every day, and the ones that give you the shits. And by the end of the day, you're just tired to the extent where you don't even want to go to the fucking gym, you know? And then someone turns up and says, by the way, there's war in the Gaza Strip again. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, you know? You throw your hands up and you go, I just don't get it. And so what we're seeing now, even in this particular context, people are picking sides, but they're picking sides which are relative to their particular realities, the experiences they've had. Maybe they've got a cultural influence, maybe they've got a religious influence in the area of, you know, which side to go with. But they're not understanding critically what could be happening from both sides, which is insane. Because ultimately what they're not saying is these are people. They're people fighting people. They're just people. It's not, you know, once the people are dead, you know, there's nothing to fight for. There's nothing to fight over anymore. So this entire push for trying to prove that they're right is irrelevant. And meanwhile, you know, the divine's sitting there going, I can't believe you fucking blew up my petri dish, you bastards. I just can't believe you did this. I've been growing it for so long. Why are you like this? Why are you like this? Ant farms and such. There are metaphors for that. So I don't ascribe to belong to anything in particular. I just like to watch everything from a distance. Unfortunately, I do have to interact. That's where most of my stress comes from in the day, having to interact with people who do ascribe to particular groups or belonging to certain things. Like, for example, I'm a teacher. I'm a primary school teacher. I have to understand the politics which exists within that particular sphere. I need to understand how interactions between staff is going to develop into any kind of influence over my teaching strategies and the content I have to fucking portray for the kids and how it affects the kids and all this kind of, everything sort of forms a symbiotic relationship. It drives you fucking nuts because in the end of the day, I just want to look after the fucking kids. That's my paramount problem here, is like dealing with the shit from the adults so that I can just do my job of looking after the fucking kids. It drives me fucking nuts. I spend more time in fucking meetings and liaisons and interactions with assholes who've got nothing to do with the fucking job just so I can get to my classroom and look after my kids, man. It drives me fucking nuts. But to say that I need to belong to that in order to do my job is unfortunately one of the hazards I have to deal with in a day. I have to participate in the mediocrity of the, outside adult bullshit in order to get to my kids, which most of the time is pastoral care. I work in a lot of low SES schools, so I'm dealing with a lot of shit they've dragged in from outside, which is emotional damage and psychological damage. And that's just being a teacher, and that's not even including my fucking psych degree and stuff. That's just me being with a basics teaching degree. We're dealing with a lot of grown-ups that have ascribed to a certain reality, including things like drug abuse and stuff like that, and said this is what it should be because I'm allowing it, enabling it. I'm dating a crackhead and therefore it's fine. I'm enabling this because I belong to this particular community and this is normal for me. Never mind that it's a danger to the kid. It's that shit I have to deal with. And you look at it from an abstract external position and you go, this is hurting the kid. You are an asshole. Why do I have to tolerate your shit? And one of the worst things you have to do as a teacher is hand them back at the end of the day knowing they're going back to a dangerous position, a dangerous household, and saying, I've loved this kid for the entire fucking year. I cannot believe I have to hand it back to you, who is clearly a danger to yourself and others. And that's the law. I mean, I have to participate within the realms of the law as well. Never mind wanting to look after the babies. You've got to understand that this is their parent. The law says this is their caregiver, despite the fact that maybe you could do better yourself. If only just not including drugs in their day, It's like, it's heartbreaking as well because you're like, I don't want to belong to this group, but I know that if I leave, it will be worse for the kid because at least, with me here, they've got one person on their fucking side. It's insane. I hate doing it. I really do. It's crazy. Anyway, so, this is kind of shit. And this is the danger of belonging. It's like, is it more dangerous to belong to a group or to not belong to a group? So you're suffering contrast there as well. It's crazy. I don't want to belong. I'm a natural introvert. I like keeping my shit to myself. I don't trust anyone particularly because of the experiences I've had, but at the same time I know I need to participate with a bunch of assholes who I don't trust, who I don't think much of these days, to be honest, given the way they've interacted with each other. And you're sitting there thinking, and that's where most of my internal screaming comes from. You wonder why you've got generalized social anxiety. It's like, because these fuckers are still here doing this shit. And it's wrong, and we all know it's wrong, but they do it because they want to fucking belong to the group. And you're like, you assholes. It defies logic. Why are we doing this? Because our logic says we should. And it's like, I feel like that cat meme where it's got its arms in the air, little black cat's going, So what the fuck? Why are we doing this to ourselves? But again, it's based on, it's a hierarchy of values and things like that. Someone at the top has said this is the way it is and should be. I've got the money and the power, and therefore this is the way it's going to play out. And most of the time it's benefiting them anyway. So as much as you've got all these, communist countries saying they're all equal and we share the communist values, is bullshit. There's some arsehole at the top of the fucking pyramid saying, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, and if you don't, I will use fear tactics and control to make you do what I want you to do. I mean, yeah. And that trickles down into society as well. That's, forms of parenting, that's employment options, that's working with particular businesses, how people destroy each other in a public image kind of way. It's insane. It's one person just being an asshole. Rather than uplifting others, is sitting there dragging them down to make themselves feel better. And that's another aspect of belonging to groups I just don't like. I would rather be in hermit mode, knowing that at least I'm isolated from shit as much as I can, and I'm not harming anyone myself in the direct result. It's if I start telling people what they have to do, what they need to do, then I might become part of the problem. Why would I Why would I want to contribute to something I don't want to belong to? So what do? You've got stories of these reluctant kings and hesitant queens and things like that, and you sit there and think, I can understand where you're coming from. I mean, if somebody turned around to me today and said, by the way, oh my god, on Netflix, is it Netflix or is Amazon? It's one of them. They've got this documentary where it's who's the true king of England, and it's some old ass white dude that lives fuck knows where in Australia, because it follows some kind of Tudor line. I laugh my ass off. I'm sitting there going, he's cracking tinnies and sitting on his front porch, and he's like, that's the king of England? Yeah, apparently. I'm like, okay. But if someone turned around to me tomorrow and said, this is your option, you have a chance to represent this particular organization, would I want to do it? I'm sitting there going, I would hesitate so much, because I know what the fuck they do already. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know if I believe in this anymore. It was all right when the Queen was alive, because we had her as a moral compass. Whether it was real or not, she seemed more real than the current one. I never heard of any spider letters coming from her or anything like that. She just kept to herself and kept going. But at the same time, it's like these days I'm looking at the current structure and I'm going, it's heavily flawed, and I don't believe or trust in it, to be honest. I don't believe in not having monarchies, because I need, people need some kind of direction, even the lesser educated people do. But that's also the problem with having like the Tories, for example, in the British government system. It's like you got a bunch of supposedly overeducated people, which are actually only there because of nepotism and cronyism, and they're highly paid because they know a guy. Are you actually qualified for the position, or did you just buy into the right schools and shit? It's insane. This is why we also got the Labour Party, which apparently is the opposite. People who have earned their way in, which also I don't fucking believe, because, I've seen the workplace and I've operated in it, and there is cronyism and nepotism there as well. So it's like everyone's full of shit. They claim to be better than the other, but ultimately they're all fucking corrupt, and that's just the human condition, isn't it? Is it? I don't know. Or is it just a bunch of people half-assing the reality? I don't know. That's human error. Is it? Or is it you being a selfish prick? I don't know. But I understand there's a lot of manipulation and shit going on within these structures, and I don't want to participate, to be honest. I know that if I could get in, I mean, that's the problem Obama had as well. He was an amazing man, became president, almost said prime minister there, president. He started Obamacare, he started all these extra nice things for the people, and it started looking after people who couldn't look after themselves. But he was surrounded by a bunch of no-men, or people that didn't have their interests served. And so every time he came up with a fucking good idea, it was shot down by people around him. And I swear, he only left because he got fed up, He served his I say sentence, it's not sentence, it's term, which feels like a sentence. And he didn't come back. And you know what? His wife, Michelle Obama, I would have loved to have seen her have a go at it too, because, she's coming from a similar background. I'm sitting there going, can you do anything, to represent the girls this time, right? Not that I want to be sexist, but I thought maybe we could have an extension of any kind of growth. But she didn't want to. And I'm sitting there going, you've seen some shit, haven't you? And you, with your educated mind, you know what the fuck's going on behind the curtain. So you're going, nope, and bouncing. So I don't blame her, really. I mean, it might have been a hell of a lot of stress she saw in her husband, so she was there, not for me. But at the same time, it's like, you want to belong to these groups. You want to... I mean, some people do. Some people like Trump. I don't know what the political system is over there. I've looked at their American legal system and thought, what the fuck is this? So I don't want to even know what the government's like. It's like going, it's well fucked. But these great big organizations where you assume you're going to have a good life and it's going to be great, and you get money and you get power and attention and affection and everybody accepts you as well, it's all bullshit. It's bullshit, because as soon as you stick your head above the trenches, you become a target. Even things like marrying into the royal family is bullshit, because you lose your freedom. Everybody tells you what to do. You have to dress a particular way. You can't eat a particular way because you might get fat and it will affect your fucking public image. You've got to have kids when they say, and when it's good for PR stunts, and you don't get to do anything. There's no real holidays because, it's always a public tour. and someone's always going to see you, and there's so much baggage that goes with these fucking positions, and they're sold as the dream, to particular like Americans who are like, I just want to be a princess. Like, you don't even know what a fucking princess is. You do not want to be one of those. Enjoy your freedoms as something. I mean, educate yourself, get a good job, become a doctor or something. That's amazing. It's a lot of stress, it's long hours, but at the same time, people aren't going to tell you what the fuck to wear, eat, talk, you know, where to turn up and do, you know. You do your job and you go home. That's your freedom. It's insane. People will be sold on a dream of belonging. I'm a monarchist, but I see it more from a moral standpoint. If this is the divine right of kings, I think we need a severe increase in the morality in that area. I've seen a lot of corruption in that shit. I'm sitting there going, this does not adequately reflect the divine at all. You know, the amount of kings, for example, who have fucked around on their wives and stuff like that, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my god, this is not what the divine wanted. This is not cool. People are just getting hurt, and you don't care because you're the boss, apparently. It's shit. It's absolute shit. So I'm looking at the monarchy, for example, as a structure that should be, you know, cleansed for a fucking start. Not in a kind of Russian Revolution kind of way. I'm just saying that you need to really reformat what the fuck you're trying to do with this thing. At the moment, it's just being steered towards rocks because you're one very selfish arsehole who cannot be told no because otherwise, you know, you're banished or you're exiled or some shit like that. You're like, you are just a narc. It's like you've forgotten what your job is on this planet and you just want to self-serve. And if anyone stands in the way, they fucking get banished, you know? That hasn't changed. That's been happening for fucking centuries with monarchies. Like the Elizabethan era, it was like, what was it? Drake shagged someone who she didn't like or something like that, and he got banished or imprisoned or something like that. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, it's a big, big story, and I'm hesitant to join in with anything at this point. I'm looking around going, I would rather be at home eating snacks and playing fucking Stardew Valley than ascribe to any of this shit and assume that you're going to be doing some kind of social good when reality you still got to deal with all the assholes in the organization and try and get them on side, and it's just a lot of mind games, and I don't even like mind games, and you're sitting there thinking, fuck it. You know? Of course, you're not immune to it, whatever decisions you choose to not participate in, for example. Even like when we have the voting systems, if they are actually accurate and not completely, you know, faked with already a preconditioned response resulting, for example, you know, when they fake elections to make it look like someone's got voted in. But realistically, it's like, we already knew who was going to be the boss because it serves a particular agenda. You're still going to be screwed over by your surrounds. Even if you choose not to vote for this person, they can still have an influence on your life, you know. That's the craziness of wanting to exist, you know, in a society and wanting to belong. So the innocent term of act, commit, belong that Australia, our mental health system, is trying to push in this country is heavily, you know, flawed. I don't believe it. I want to believe that people have a natural inclination to goodness. There's a whole bunch of sociological theorists on that, and Foucault being one of them. Trying to remember the other ones. Durkheim, maybe, I don't know. It's Simmel, I don't know. It's been a while since I talked about that shit. Read any of that shit. But, you know, there is this general idea that people have a predisposition to being good, and I don't know if that's just, you know, stating that from a moralist viewpoint, that people are, or humans are generally arrogant, that they assume they are good, because it's us, right? How can we be bad? That's a speciesist question. Snakes and spiders, terrible. Humans, amazing. Even though we're destroying our own fucking people and the planet and the animals, it's like, but humans, they're inherently good. It's like, what? Nobody's fucking questioning that shit. You know, we're destroying our own planet, right? That's fine. We've got the moral question. I haven't murdered anyone today. But that, again, is like you find yourself not even liking your own species because you have to belong in it, even though, you know, you're hoping that it will be, you know, striving for greatness, enlightenment, and further promotion of positivity and all that kind of shit. But we're not questioning really the structures that we're existing in and perpetuating and enabling. So Oh my god, it's a fucking nightmare. Every day is a fucking existential crisis. Particularly after I've eaten copious amounts of sugar, it's just spiraling. So, you know, I don't have nervous breakdowns about poverty anymore. I've just sort of tucked it under my wing as part of my reality. It's now about, oh my god, what are we doing on the planet is a major thing. You know, are we gonna die? I don't know, probably. But you know, it's there's a danger to belonging. So I would be mindful. I'm gonna have to leave it there soon because I've got to go into class and it's already 8 o'clock. Be mindful of what you ascribe to. Try and find as much information as you can. Look at it critically. Don't just see the good bits and go, oh, that looks pretty, I'm going to go with that. Because even fool's gold is gold. Or at least appears to be gold. You've got ice that looks like diamonds sometimes. Although realistically, if you want to tell if it's a diamond, I think you have to breathe on it. And if it clouds up, it's a diamond. Or if it's a diamond, it doesn't cloud up. It's something like that. And there's a rainbow or something, I don't know. Or is that a zirconia? I don't know. Test out your shit. Don't just believe it on a whim. Okay? Triangulate your data. Anyone who's done a doctorate degree knows that you need to triangulate your data. You can't just accept primary sources and that's it. Or secondary sources. You know, just, it's crazy. People will just believe shit because it looks good. But again, they're also dealing in the context of, you know, that 30 centimeter day-to-day vision. They're so tired, so stressed, and they're just willing to believe it because it's easier. I would actively encourage you to look outside the box. People are not what they appear to be often. And that sounds a bit Machiavellian, really, honestly, in a political sense, because, you know, they're pushing an agenda. And if you can get the people on side or fighting for you under a flag, then yeah, fuck it. The opposition's already gone. You just get the plebs to do it for you. So I'm thinking of, you know, very white men in ivory towers at this point. It's like, I'm going to tell people that this is evil and it exists in this particular area so they get hyped up and go and fight for something that's my own agenda. Not that I'm actually going to fight because that would be risky and I'm not retarded, you know. You know, before you start joining the masses in fighting, you might want to question what the original message is, where it came from, and what the modus operandi was of that fucking message. Because chances are you're fighting under a false flag. You really need to look at things critically. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because I've got a bunch of kids to teach, because apparently this is my value. Do I want to join any kind of political system? Probably not. Do I have a choice at this point? No. Do I have any influence? Probably not, but you know, we're optimistic. I don't know. I hope you have a fantastic Thursday. I'm heading up to my parents', or down to my parents' house tomorrow. I'm going to try and do a podcast then. It's going to be another long one if I've got the energy to do it. I don't know. I'm in two minds about going down that way, to be honest, because if you listen to, you know, one of my really long podcasts recently was about how I don't enjoy going down there. Generational curses, that's the one. Basically me ranting and bitching about my parents, so, you know, as they all are. I'm hoping you guys have a fantastic Thursday. Take it easy. It's nearly Friday. Thor's Day today. We've got to keep our mood and our temper and our vanity under wraps, all right? That's the theme. We're nearly at a Friday Freya's Day, so let's have a go. All right? And I'll chat to you later.
Being there is an essential component of being there. You don't have the one without the other. That's the way being